Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of the harvester ship looking at the blue planet below. Earth, the third planet from a yellow star. It looked peaceful from up here. Beautiful even, but Velthar did not care about beauty. He cared about profit. The Zarketh Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 47 different species. Some fought back. Some surrendered quickly. All of them ended up the same way. Working in the mines. Building ships. Serving their masters. The Zarketh were good at finding weak species. They were even better at breaking them. "Report," Velthar said to his scanning officer. The officer looked at his screens. The planet has approximately 8 billion individuals. They are divided into nearly 200 separate nations. No unified government. No planetary defense system. Their most advanced weapons use chemical reactions and simple atomic energy. Their space presence is minimal. A few satellites, one small station, some primitive probes. Velthar felt his mandibles click together in what passed for a Zarketh smile. Perfect. They are exactly what we need. Strong enough to work, but too divided to resist. Have we observed any concerning behaviors? They fight among themselves constantly, the officer replied. Wars over territory, resources, and beliefs. They have no unity, no strength. They should be easy to harvest. The Zarketh had been watching Earth for 3 months. That was their standard procedure. Learn the target's weaknesses, find the best time to strike, then take what they needed. In this case, they needed workers. Millions of them. The Empire's expansion required more labor than their current slave population could provide. Humans looked like they would be ideal. They could survive in many different environments. They could lift heavy objects. They bred quickly. And best of all, they seemed weak, soft, no natural armor. No claws, no venom. Just pinker brown skin that could be easily damaged. Begin the harvest, Velthar ordered. Across the bridge, officers moved to their stations. They had done this many times before. The procedure was simple and effective. First, disable their military capabilities. Second, capture as many individuals as possible. Third, broadcast a message of dominance. Fourth, establish occupation zones. The attack began at midnight Earth time. 60 Zarketh warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the planet. They moved into position over every major population center. Then they fired. Electromagnetic pulses knocked out power grids across the continents. Military bases were hit with precision strikes. Ships sank in harbors. Aircraft fell from the sky. Communication networks went dark. In less than an hour, humanity's ability to fight back was crippled. Then the harvesting began. Massive transport beams shot down from the ships. They locked onto human biosignatures. Thousands of people at a time found themselves pulled into the air, unable to move, unable to scream. The stun fields kept them paralyzed. They floated upward like leaves in the wind. In New York City, millions watched in horror as their neighbors, friends, and family members were taken. In Beijing, people ran through the streets trying to escape the beams. In London, Paris, Moscow, Tokyo, Mumbai, and São Paulo, the same scenes played out. Panic, terror, helplessness. The Zarketh processed the captured humans quickly. Medical scans, strength tests, age verification. The young and healthy were marked for heavy labor. The intelligent ones were flagged for technical work. The rest would be used for whatever was needed. Sarah Chen was a mechanical engineer from California. She had been working late at her lab when the lights went out. Before she could react, the transport beam caught her. Now she stood in a massive holding cell with hundreds of other humans. They were all wearing thin gray uniforms. None of them spoke. They were too shocked as Zarketh guard walked past. It was tall, maybe 7 feet. Its body was covered in hard, dark scales. 4 arms, a tail, eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. It looked at the humans like they were cattle. "You belong to the Empire now," the guard said. Its voice came through a translator device. "You will work. You will obey. You will serve. Those who resist will be terminated. Those who comply will survive." Sarah looked around at the other prisoners. She saw fear in their eyes. But she also saw something else. Anger. Determination. These people were not broken yet. On Earth, the few remaining military forces tried to fight back. Fighter jets that had been in the air during the EMP attack attempted to engage the alien ships. Their missiles exploded harmlessly against energy shields. The Zarketh ships did not even bother to return fire. They simply ignored the attacks like a human might ignore an insect. World leaders who had survived the initial strikes tried to communicate with the invaders. They offered negotiations, peace talks, surrender terms, anything to stop the harvesting. Velthar decided to respond. He appeared on every screen, every device, every display that still had power. His message was broadcast in every human language simultaneously. People of Earth, he began. Your planet now belongs to the Zarketh Empire. Your species has been selected to serve. Resistance is pointless. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses are useless. Your military has been destroyed. Surrender peacefully and you will be treated fairly. Continue to resist and entire cities will be eliminated. He paused, letting his words sink in. We have already harvested 5 million of your people. They are being transported to work colonies throughout the Empire. They will help build our ships, mine our resources, and serve our needs. More will be taken every day until we have what we require. This is not negotiable. This is not a discussion. This is reality. The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people watched in stunned silence. Some wept, some prayed, some sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. Their world had been conquered in a single night. In underground bunkers, the remaining government officials held emergency meetings. The President of the United States sat at a table with military advisors and scientists. What are our options? She asked. General Morrison shook his head. Madam President, we have no options. Our nuclear arsenal can't penetrate their shields. Our conventional weapons are useless. They control the skies. They control space. We're helpless. A scientist named Dr. Hayes spoke up. Not entirely helpless. We still have our minds, our knowledge. If we can study their technology, maybe we can find a weakness. With what? Another general asked. We can't even get close to their ships. Then we wait, the president said quietly. We survive. We watch, we learn, and when the moment comes, we fight back. But that moment seemed very far away. The Zarketh continued their harvest for 3 weeks. By the end, they had taken 50 million humans. Entire cities were partially emptied. Families were torn apart. The world descended into chaos. The aliens established occupation zones in every major city. They set up processing centers where humans could be evaluated and taken. They posted guards at key locations. They monitored all communications, and they were confident. Why wouldn't they be? They had conquered dozens of species before. None had ever successfully resisted. The humans would be no different. Marcus Webb was a Marine. He had been on leave, visiting his family in Texas when the invasion happened. He watched from hiding as the Zarketh took his parents, his sister, his nephew. He wanted to fight, but he was alone and unarmed, so he did what Marines are trained to do. He retreated, regrouped, and started planning. He was not the only one. All over Earth, soldiers, police officers, and ordinary citizens went into hiding. They gathered weapons. They formed small groups. They watched the aliens and learned their patterns. It was not much, but it was a start. In the slave ships traveling to distant colonies, Sarah Chen looked out a small window at the stars. Earth was already far behind them. She did not know where they were going. She did not know what would happen to her. But she knew one thing: humans were survivors. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. They had climbed to the top of their planet's food chain, not because they were the strongest or the fastest. They had done it because they were the smartest, the most adaptable, the most stubborn. The Zarketh thought they had conquered Earth. They thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They were wrong. On his command ship, Velthar reviewed the harvest reports. Everything had gone according to plan. The humans were compliant, submissive, defeated. He filed his final report to the Empire's Central Command. Conquest of Earth complete. Species assessment weak, docile. Suitable for long-term exploitation. No significant resistance expected. He had no idea how wrong he was. The Zarketh had made a terrible mistake. They had not conquered humanity. They had only made it angry. And they were about to learn something that every predator on Earth had learned millions of years ago. Never corner a human. The mining colony Crag 7 orbited a dead planet in the outer regions of Zarketh space. It was a massive structure built over centuries, housing 300,000 slaves from a dozen different species. The Zarketh had brought 10,000 humans here. They thought it would be just another routine integration. They were wrong. Sarah Chen stood in the processing line with the other new arrivals. A Zarketh overseer walked past, examining each slave. When it reached Sarah, it stopped. Its scanner device beeped. "Engineer," it said. "You will work in the power systems maintenance. Report to Section 9. Sarah nodded and moved forward. She had been here only 2 days, but she was already learning. The Zarketh technology was advanced, but it was not impossible to understand. Their power cores used principles similar to fusion reactors. Their communication systems operated on frequencies she could measure. Their security protocols had patterns she could observe. She was not the only one learning. All around the colony, humans were watching, studying, remembering. The Zarketh had enslaved many species. The Vren were small and timid, giving up after just a few days of captivity. The Dothrak were strong but slow-thinking, easily controlled. The Keelish were intelligent but individualistic, never working together. Each species had broken in their own way, but humans were different. Overseer Kelvan had managed slave populations for 20 years. He thought he understood how to break a species. You separate them. You punish resistance. You reward compliance. Eventually they give up and accept their fate. The humans should have broken by now. They had been in captivity for 5 weeks. They had been beaten, starved, worked to exhaustion. But something was wrong. Kelvan walked through the sleeping quarters late at night. He expected to hear crying, despair, the sounds of broken spirits. Instead he heard whispers. Quiet conversations, planning. He stopped outside one cell. Inside, a human was sharing his food ration with an injured cellmate. Another was tearing strips from his uniform to make bandages. A third was teaching the others words in the Zarketh language. Kelvin felt something he had not felt in years: unease. Marcus Webb had been assigned to heavy lifting in the ore processing section. It was brutal work. 12-hour shifts moving containers that weighed hundreds of pounds. The Zarketh expected the slaves to collapse, to beg for mercy, to lose hope. But Marcus had been through Marine boot camp. He had survived desert warfare and jungle combat training. This was hard, but he had seen worse. And more importantly, he was not alone. He worked next to a man named Chen from Hong Kong, a woman named Amara from Nigeria, and a teenager named João from Brazil. They did not speak the same languages at first, but they learned. They helped each other. When one person was too tired to lift, the others covered for them. When the guards looked away, they rested together, and they shared information. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours, Chen whispered during a break. There is a 3-minute gap when the new guards are not yet in position. The stun weapons need to recharge, Amara added. After they fire, there is a 5-second delay. The armory is on level 3, João said. I saw it when they brought us in. Marcus listened to it all. He filed every detail away in his mind. He was building a map of the colony, finding its weak points, planning. In the power maintenance section, Sarah was doing the same thing. She had access to the colony's energy systems. She could see how power flowed through the structure. She could identify critical junctions, and she was learning how to sabotage them. It started small, a loose connection here, a calibration error there, nothing that would be noticed immediately. But over time, these small problems would add up. Systems would become less efficient. The Zarketh would have to spend more time on repairs. Sarah was not the only one doing this. Human engineers throughout the colony were causing tiny malfunctions, making things just difficult enough to slow down production. The Zarketh blamed it on old equipment. They had no idea it was deliberate. On Earth, the situation was different but no less tense. The Zarketh occupation forces controlled the major cities, but they could not watch everyone. In the wilderness, in the mountains, in the deserts, humans were gathering. Dr. Hayes had escaped from Washington, D.C. before the aliens took the city. He made his way to a secret military facility in the Rocky Mountains. Inside, he found other survivors. Scientists, engineers, military personnel. They had salvaged what they could. Computer systems, research data, and most importantly, they had found something interesting. 3 Zarketh ships had crashed during the initial invasion. Their shields had been damaged by the atmospheric entry, and surface-to-air missiles had brought them down. The Zarketh had destroyed 2 of the crash sites, but one had fallen in a remote area of Alaska. The military had reached it first. Dr. Hayes stood in front of the recovered alien technology. Parts of a ship's hull, fragments of their weapons, a partially intact power core. Can we learn anything from this? General Morrison asked. Absolutely, Hayes replied. Their technology is advanced, but it follows physical laws we understand. Their shields operate on electromagnetic principles. Their power cores use contained plasma reactions. We can study this. We can figure out how it works. And then we can find a way to defeat it. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. But we will do it. Around the world, other resistance groups were forming. In France, former soldiers were conducting hit-and-run attacks on alien patrols. In China, hackers were trying to infiltrate the Zarketh communication networks. In India, scientists were working on biological weapons that might affect the aliens. In South America, guerrilla fighters were learning to move unseen through the jungles. None of these efforts were coordinated yet. Each group worked independently, not knowing if anyone else was still fighting. But they were all working toward the same goal. Freedom. Back on Crag 7, Overseer Kelvin filed his first concerning report. The human slaves are displaying unusual behavior. They share resources without prompting. They teach each other skills. They protect their weak. When one is punished, the others do not fear. They become angry. He paused before writing the next part. Request additional security measures. These humans may be more dangerous than initial assessments indicated. His superior dismissed the report. You have managed thousands of slaves, Kelvin. The humans are no different. Increase punishment if they misbehave. They will break eventually. But Kelvin was not convinced. He had seen something in the humans' eyes, something he had never seen in other slaves. It was not fear. It was not acceptance. It was calculation. They were planning something. He decided to watch them more carefully. 2 months after the invasion, something happened that changed everything. A transport ship carrying 500 slaves was traveling from Earth to another colony. On board were mostly humans along with some slaves from other species. The Zarketh crew was small, only 20 guards. They thought it was enough. The slaves were locked in holding cells. They had no weapons, no tools, no way to escape, but they had something else. They had humans who refused to give up. A woman named Rita, a locksmith from Detroit, studied the cell doors for days. She noticed they used a simple magnetic locking mechanism. She also noticed the guards carried metal tools on their belts. When one guard got too close to her cell, she grabbed his tool through the bars and pulled it into the cell before he could react. She worked on the lock for 6 hours, making almost no sound. Finally, it clicked open. She opened her cell and moved to the next one. Then the next. Within an hour, all the human cells were open. They moved silently through the ship, using tactics as old as humanity itself. Ambush, surprise, overwhelming force. The Zarketh guards never had a chance. The humans attacked from the shadows using makeshift weapons and raw aggression. Some guards were killed before they could even raise their weapons. Others managed to fire their stun guns, but there were too many humans coming from too many directions. In 15 minutes, it was over. The humans had taken the ship. They did not know how to fly it, but they did not need to. They found the communication system and sent a message. It was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every Zarketh ship, station, and colony within range. The message was simple. This is the free human resistance. We have taken one of your ships. This is just the beginning. We will never stop fighting. We will never surrender. Come for us if you dare. The message spread like wildfire. On Crag 7, Marcus Webb heard about it from a sympathetic Vren slave who had overheard the guards talking. He smiled for the first time since his capture. They were not alone. Others were fighting back. On Earth, the news reached the resistance groups. It gave them hope. It proved that the Zarketh could be beaten, and on the Zarketh command ship, Velthar received the message with growing anger. He had assured the Empire that the humans were weak, that they would be easy to control. Now they had taken one of his ships. They had killed Zarketh warriors. They were openly defying the Empire. He sent orders to all colonies and occupation forces. Increase security. Double the guards. Any sign of resistance is to be met with immediate execution. The humans must learn their place. But even as he gave these orders, Velthar felt something he had not felt before. A small seed of doubt. Maybe the humans were not as weak as they appeared. Maybe they were not like the other species the Zarketh had conquered. He pushed the thought away. The Zarketh had crushed rebellions before. They would crush this one too. But deep down, he wondered, the humans had evolved on a world where almost everything tried to kill them. They had survived predators, diseases, natural disasters, and their own violent tendencies. They had learned to work together when threatened. They had learned to adapt, to persist, to never give up. The Zarketh had made a mistake. They had thought humans were prey, but humans were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were both prey and predator. They had the persistence of the hunted and the cunning of the hunter, and they were just getting started. The captured transport ship drifted in empty space. The humans aboard had no idea how to navigate it, but they had accomplished something important. They had proven that resistance was possible. The ship became a symbol, and symbols have power. The Zarketh Empire tried to keep the incident quiet, but information has a way of spreading. Within a week, every slave colony knew about it. Whispers turned into conversations. Conversations turned into plans. On Crag 7, Marcus Webb gathered a group of trusted humans in a maintenance corridor during a shift break. There were 12 of them. Former soldiers, police officers, athletes, engineers. Each person had something to contribute. "We can take this colony," Marcus said quietly. "The guards are complacent. They think we are broken. They are wrong." Sarah Chen was there too. She had been working in the power systems for 3 months now. "I can shut down the lights and the security cameras," she said. "Give us 30 minutes of darkness. Maybe more." "The armory has 40 guards," Chen from Hong Kong added. "But during shift change there are only 20. If we move fast, we can overwhelm them." Marcus looked at each person. "This is dangerous. Some of us will die, but if we do nothing, we will all die eventually. At least this way we die fighting. Who is with me?" Every hand went up. They spent 2 weeks preparing. Sarah sabotaged more systems, making them unstable enough to justify a maintenance shutdown. Marcus trained the others in hand-to-hand combat during their rest periods. They made weapons from scrap metal and tools. They memorized guard patterns and shift schedules. They also did something else. They spread the word. Not to everyone, that would be too dangerous. But to the right people, former military, engineers, anyone with skills, anyone with courage. By the day of the uprising, they had 200 humans ready to fight. The Zarketh researchers had been studying humans more carefully since the transport ship incident. What they found disturbed them. Humans had evolved in one of the most hostile environments the researchers had ever seen. Earth was a death world. Almost everything on that planet was poisonous, venomous, or predatory. The weather could kill in minutes. Diseases were everywhere. Yet humans had not only survived, they had thrived. They had done this by developing something unique. They were persistence hunters. Every other species in the galaxy was either prey or predator. Animals ran fast or flew or had armor or venom. But humans were different. They were not the fastest or the strongest. They were the most stubborn. They would chase their prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. They never stopped. They never gave up. This trait had made them excellent survivors. It also made them terrible slaves. The lead researcher filed a report to the Empire. Humans should be reclassified as a dangerous species. They possess high intelligence, excellent problem-solving abilities, and an unusual resistance to psychological breakdown. They do not respond to standard slave management techniques. Recommend immediate termination of the human harvest program. The Empire ignored the report. They had 50 million humans in their colonies. Those slaves represented billions in value. They were not going to give that up because of one researcher's concerns. On Earth, Dr. Hayes and his team had made significant progress. They had successfully powered up the alien power core. They had analyzed the shield technology. They had even managed to reverse engineer some of the weapon systems. The shields operate on a rotating frequency, Hayes explained to the military officers gathered around him. They cycle through different wavelengths to block various types of energy. But there is a pattern. If we can time our weapons to fire during the transition phase, we can penetrate them. General Morrison studied the data. Can we build weapons that do this? We already are, Hayes replied. We have adapted some of our existing missile systems. They are not as powerful as Zarketh weapons, but they should be able to damage their ships. How many do we have? 50. We are making more every day, but we need time. Time. That was always the problem. The Zarketh were still harvesting humans, still taking people away. Every day that passed meant more families destroyed. But they were not the only ones working. Across the planet, resistance cells were coordinating. A worldwide network was forming. Fighters in Brazil shared tactics with fighters in Russia. Engineers in India collaborated with engineers in Germany. Hackers in Korea worked with hackers in Israel. Humanity was doing what it did best. adapting, learning, working together when faced with a common enemy. The night of the Krag 7 uprising arrived. Sarah Chen was in position at the power control station. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her mind was clear. She had disabled the backup systems earlier. When she shut down the main power, the colony would go dark. Marcus Webb was near the armory with 50 other humans. They had makeshift weapons hidden under their uniforms. Another group of 50 was positioned near the guard barracks. The rest were spread throughout the colony, ready to secure key locations. The signal was simple. When the lights went out, they moved. Sarah took a deep breath and pulled the main power coupling. The lights went out. Emergency systems tried to activate, but she had sabotaged those too. The colony was plunged into complete darkness. Marcus and his team rushed the armory. The guards were confused, shouting in the darkness. Their weapons had targeting systems that needed light to function properly. The humans had no such limitations. They had trained for this. They knew where every guard would be standing. The fight was brutal and quick. The Zarketh guards were better equipped and better trained. But they were not prepared for the ferocity of the human attack. Marcus and his team fought with a desperation born from months of captivity. Every punch, every strike, every tackle carried the weight of all their suffering. Within 10 minutes, the armory was theirs. Now they had real weapons. The battle spread throughout the colony. The Zarketh tried to organize a defense, but they were fighting in the dark against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. The other slave species watched in amazement. They had never seen anyone fight the Zarketh like this. Some joined the uprising. The Vren were still too afraid, but a few Dothrak picked up weapons and fought alongside the humans. Even some Keelish decided to risk it. The sight of humans refusing to give up inspired them. By morning, it was over. The humans had captured the command center. They had secured the communications array. They had taken control of the colony's defensive weapons. 200 humans had died in the fighting, but Krag 7 was free. Marcus stood in the command center looking at the tactical displays. He could see Zarketh ships moving toward their position. Reinforcements, the Empire was not going to let this stand. "How long until they arrive?" he asked. Sarah checked the sensors. 12 hours, maybe less. Can we use the colony's weapons against them? Maybe. I am learning the systems, but I am not an expert yet. Marcus nodded. Then we learn fast, and we send a message. Tell everyone what we did here. Let them know that humans do not stay slaves. The message went out on every frequency. It reached other colonies. It reached Earth. It reached deep into Zarketh space. The message was defiant and clear. Krag 7 is free. We defeated the Zarketh. We took their weapons. We took their colony. If you are a human slave, you are not alone. Fight back. Resist. Never surrender. The message had an immediate effect. On 3 other colonies, human slaves launched uprisings within hours. They had been waiting for a sign. Krag 7 had given them hope. On Earth, the message reached the resistance groups. They celebrated. They had allies now. They were not fighting alone. Dr. Hayes stood in front of General Morrison. We need to act now. The Zarketh will be distracted by these uprisings. This is our chance to strike. With 50 missiles? Morrison asked. With whatever we have. We hit them hard. We hit them fast. We show them that Earth is not conquered. The general thought for a moment, then nodded. All right. We go to war. Contact all resistance cells. Tell them to prepare for coordinated attacks. We hit every occupation zone simultaneously. Make it hurt. Commander Velthar received the reports with growing alarm. 4 colonies in revolt. The humans on Earth launching attacks. His carefully organized harvest operation was falling apart. He called an emergency meeting with his command staff. How is this possible? They are a primitive species. They should not be able to coordinate like this. His intelligence officer pulled up data. Commander, we have underestimated them. Humans are not like other species. They have a concept called warfare. They have been fighting each other for their entire history. They have developed thousands of different combat techniques. They understand strategy, tactics, and guerrilla operations at an instinctive level. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force, Velthar said. Send the fleet to Krag 7, destroy the colony if necessary. Make an example of them. Commander, that will kill millions of valuable slaves. Better to lose millions than to let this rebellion spread. Do it. But it was already too late. The rebellion had spread. Across the Empire, human slaves were rising up. They fought with stolen weapons, improvised tools, and bare hands. Many died, but many more kept fighting. The Zarketh had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that because humans fought each other, they were weak. They had not understood that those conflicts had made humans incredibly skilled at warfare. Every war, every battle, every fight in human history had been training, preparing them for this moment. On Crag 7, Marcus watched the approaching Zarketh fleet on the sensors. There were 10 warships, more than enough to destroy the colony. He turned to Sarah. "Can you use the colony's weapons?" She nodded. "I think so. But we only have 6 defense platforms. They have 10 ships. The math is not good." Marcus smiled grimly. "Humans have never been good at math when it comes to war. We fight anyway." The Zarketh fleet entered weapons range. They expected the colony to surrender. They expected the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, the defense platforms opened fire. The battle for Crag 7 had begun, and across the galaxy, humanity was waking up. They were angry. They were determined. And they were done being slaves. The Battle of Crag 7 lasted 6 hours. The colony's defense platforms were old and had not been maintained properly. But Sarah Chen and her team of engineers worked miracles. They pushed the systems beyond their design limits. They found every advantage they could. The Zarketh fleet expected an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting a desperate and intelligent enemy. The humans used the colony itself as a shield, forcing the Zarketh ships to hold their fire or risk destroying valuable infrastructure. They fired in patterns that made the alien ships waste energy on their shields. They targeted weak points that the Zarketh did not even know they had. 2 Zarketh ships were destroyed. 3 more were damaged. But the colony's defenses were failing. One by one, the platforms went offline. Marcus stood in the command center watching the tactical display. They had fought well, better than anyone expected, but it was not enough. "We need to evacuate," Sarah said. "We have shuttles. We can get most people out before they destroy the colony." Marcus shook his head. "Where would we go? They will just hunt us down." Then something unexpected happened. New contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But these were not Zarketh ships. They were human ships. The resistance on Earth had been busy. Dr. Hayes and his team had not just built weapons. They had built spacecraft, crude ones, retrofitted from captured Zarketh technology and human engineering. They were not pretty. They were not elegant. But they worked. 20 human ships entered the battle. They were piloted by volunteers who knew they might not come back. Fighter pilots, astronauts, test pilots, anyone brave enough to fly into combat against a superior enemy. The Zarketh fleet was caught off guard. They had to split their attention between the colony and these new attackers. The human ships swarmed them like angry hornets. They used tactics the Zarketh had never seen. Kamikaze runs, suicide attacks, ramming. The Zarketh considered such tactics dishonorable. They fought with discipline and structure. Humans fought to win no matter the cost. 3 more Zarketh ships were destroyed. The remaining 5 retreated. Crag 7 was saved. Marcus watched as the human fleet moved into defensive positions around the colony. He opened a communication channel. "This is Crag 7 Command. Thank you for the assist. Who are you?" A voice came back. American accent. Military bearing. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Resistance Fleet. We heard you needed some help. Sorry we are late." Marcus felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. On Earth, the coordinated attacks had begun. Resistance cells across the planet hit Zarketh occupation forces simultaneously. They used everything they had. Improvised explosives. Hacked computer systems. Stolen weapons. Even biological agents designed to target Zarketh physiology. In Paris, a team of hackers broke into the Zarketh communication network. They uploaded a virus that caused chaos in the alien command systems. Orders were lost. Coordination broke down. In Mumbai, resistance fighters ambushed a Zarketh patrol using tactics learned from centuries of guerrilla warfare. The aliens never saw them coming. In Moscow, scientists released a modified bacteria into the Zarketh base's water supply. It was not deadly, but it made the aliens sick, weak, distracted. All over the world, humans attacked. They did not have superior technology. They did not have overwhelming numbers, but they had something the Zarketh did not understand. They had the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of warfare. Every trick, every trap, Every dirty tactic that desperate people had ever used. The Zarketh occupation forces were unprepared. They had expected compliance. They got rebellion. They had expected fear. They got fury. Commander Velthar stood on his command ship watching the reports come in. It was a disaster. Colonies were falling. Earth was in open revolt. His forces were being pushed back on every front. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are a primitive species. We have technology they cannot match. We have numbers they cannot overcome. How are they winning?" His intelligence officer looked at him with what might have been fear. "Commander, I have analyzed the situation. The humans are not fighting the way we expected. They are not trying to win battles. They are trying to make it too expensive for us to continue." "Explain." "For every human we kill, 10 more join the resistance. For every colony we destroy, we lose valuable resources. For every ship we send to suppress them, they destroy 2 more with suicide attacks. They are willing to die to hurt us. They do not care about the cost to themselves. They only care about making us suffer." Velthar felt a chill run through his body. He had studied many species, conquered many worlds, but he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were not just fighting. They were fighting smart, using their weakness as a weapon, turning their desperation into strength. "Request reinforcements from the Empire," he ordered. "We need more ships, more troops, more resources." "Commander, the Empire is refusing. They say we have already lost too many assets. They want us to cut our losses and abandon the human harvesting operation." "Abandon? We cannot abandon this. The humans will see it as weakness. They will pursue us. They will hunt us across the galaxy. That is exactly what the Empire fears, Commander." On Crag 7, Marcus and Captain Rodriguez planned their next move. The human fleet had grown. More ships were arriving every day, built in secret facilities across Earth. They were not military vessels. They were cargo ships, civilian transports, even old satellites retrofitted with weapons. But they were armed, and they were crewed by humans who had nothing left to lose. "We need to go on the offensive," Marcus said. "Hit their supply lines. Free more colonies. Keep them off balance." Rodriguez nodded. "My thoughts exactly. We have identified 3 major Zarketh logistics hubs. If we take those out, their entire operation in this sector collapses." Sarah entered the room. "I have been studying their technology. I think I can create a weapon that will disable their shields permanently, but I need time and resources." "You will have whatever you need," Marcus said. "This is our chance to turn the tide." Over the next month, the human fleet launched a series of devastating raids. They hit supply convoys. They destroyed communication relays. They freed slave colonies and recruited the freed slaves into their growing army. The freed aliens were amazed by the humans. These creatures had been slaves for only 6 months, yet they fought like seasoned warriors. They learned faster than any species the galaxy had seen. They adapted. They improvised. They never gave up. Other species began joining the resistance. Not many, but some. The Dothrak contributed their strength. The Keelish shared their technical knowledge. Even a few Vren overcame their fear and helped with logistics. But it was the humans who led. The humans who planned. The humans who inspired Dr. Hayes on Earth had developed something special. A virus specifically designed to target Zarketh biological systems. It was not lethal. That was intentional. The humans did not want to commit genocide. They wanted to send a message. The virus was deployed on a captured Zarketh ship. Within hours, every alien on board was sick. Not dying, but incapacitated. The ship was sent back toward Zarketh space with a message. A video of a human scientist explaining exactly what the virus was and how it worked. "We can deploy this weapon across your entire empire," Dr. Hayes said in the recording. "We can make every Zarketh in the galaxy sick. We can cripple your civilization. But we do not want to. We want peace. We want our people back, and we want you to leave us alone." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You made a mistake when you came to Earth. You thought we were weak because we fight among ourselves. You did not realize we were just practicing. You thought we were prey because we do not have claws or armor. You did not realize that prey on our world learned to become predators. You thought you could break us because you have broken other species. You did not realize that humans do not break. We bend, we adapt. We survive, and then we come back stronger." The message was delivered to the Zarketh High Council. They watched it in silence. Then they began to argue. Some wanted to launch a full-scale assault on humanity, crush them completely. Others wanted to negotiate, cut their losses. But one member of the council, an old warrior named Tharek, said something that made everyone pause. "We cannot defeat them," he said. "Not because they are stronger, but because they are willing to sacrifice everything. We fight for profit, for expansion, for glory. They fight for survival, for freedom, for each other. We can kill billions of them, but the rest will keep fighting, and they will find ways to hurt us that we cannot imagine. This war is unwinnable." The council chamber fell silent. Meanwhile, Marcus and the human fleet prepared for their most audacious operation yet. They had learned the location of the main Zarketh command station in this sector. It was heavily defended. Attacking it would be suicide, but that had never stopped humans before. "We hit them where it hurts," Marcus said to his assembled commanders. "We show them that nowhere is safe, that we can reach them anywhere, that the cost of keeping us as slaves is too high." Captain Rodriguez looked at the tactical data. "We will lose half our fleet in this attack. Maybe more." "I know," Marcus said. "But if we succeed, we end this war. We force them to negotiate. We get our people back." Sarah had completed her shield-disrupting weapon. It was crude and unstable. It might work once, or it might explode and destroy the ship carrying it. But it was their best chance. The human fleet assembled. 50 ships. Crewed, damaged, barely holding together. Crewed by ex-slaves, resistance fighters, and volunteers. They faced a Zarketh command station defended by 100 warships. The odds were impossible. The mission was suicide. But humans had a saying, one that every soldier, every fighter, every survivor knew by heart. "Never tell me the odds." The attack began at dawn. The human fleet jumped into the system and immediately charged at the command station. The Zarketh fleet moved to intercept. It should have been a massacre. But Sarah's weapon worked. The shield disruptor fired, sending out a pulse that collapsed the defensive shields on 20 Zarketh ships. The human fleet poured through the gap like a flood through a broken dam. They fired everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, even just ramming into enemy ships. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Debris filled space. Humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the Zarketh. They expected the fleet to retreat when losses mounted. Instead, the humans fought harder. Marcus piloted his ship directly at the command station. His shields were down. His hull was breached. But his weapons still worked. He fired at point-blank range, targeting the station's main reactor. The explosion lit up the system. The command station was destroyed. Half the human fleet was gone. But they had won. Commander Velthar watched from his flagship as his command structure collapsed. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck at the heart of his operation. They had proven they could hurt the Empire anywhere, anytime. He received a message from the High Council. One word: negotiate. The war was not over. But it was ending, and the Zarketh had learned a lesson they would never forget. Never provoke humanity. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, a small space station on the border between human-controlled territory and Zarketh space. It had been abandoned for decades, but both sides agreed it was perfect for this meeting. Marcus Webb represented humanity. He was no longer just an escaped slave. He was a military commander, a symbol of resistance and a voice for billions who had suffered under Zarketh rule. He wore a simple uniform, put together from whatever materials the human fleet could spare. But he carried himself with dignity. Commander Velthar represented the Zarketh Empire. He wore his full ceremonial armor, trying to maintain the appearance of power. But both of them knew the truth. The Empire had lost. They sat across from each other in a small meeting room. No guards, no weapons, just two beings who had been at war trying to find peace. "You have cost the Empire dearly," Velthar said. "Hundreds of ships destroyed, dozens of colonies lost, trillions in resources wasted. All for what? You cannot defeat us. We are still the most powerful force in the galaxy." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You are right. We cannot defeat you in a traditional war. We do not have your numbers. We do not have your technology. But we do not need to defeat you. We just need to make continuing this war more expensive than ending it." Velthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been frustration. "What do you want? Every human you have taken, returned, Every slave colony you control, freed. Every ship in our solar system, gone. And reparations, resources, technology, and knowledge to help us rebuild what you destroyed. That is everything. You ask for total surrender. No, Marcus said quietly. Total surrender would mean we hunt down every Zarketh ship. We destroy every colony. We chase you back to your homeworld and burn it to ash. That is what you would do if the situation were reversed. But we are not you. We want peace. But it has to be real peace, not occupation, not slavery. Real freedom. Velthar was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and there was something different in his voice. Respect, perhaps, or fear. Why did you not use your biological weapon? We know you have it. Oh, you could have killed us all. Why show mercy? Marcus looked at him directly. Because genocide is not victory. It is just another form of defeat. We fight to be free, not to become monsters. If we used that weapon, we would be no better than you. Velthar studied the human. He had underestimated this species from the beginning. He had seen them as primitive, weak, easy to control. He had been wrong about all of it. I will present your terms to the High Council, he said finally, but I believe they will accept. The cost of continuing this war is too high. You have made your point. The High Council debated for 3 days. Some wanted to continue fighting. Others wanted to teach humanity a lesson they would never forget. But in the end, practical concerns won. The Empire had lost too much. The humans had proven they would never stop fighting. And they had the ability to hurt the Zarketh in ways the Council could not accept. The treaty was signed. All human slaves would be returned. All slave colonies freed. The Zarketh would withdraw from Earth's solar system and promise not to return. They would provide resources to help Earth recover. In return, humanity would destroy its biological weapon and agree not to attack Zarketh territories. It was not a total victory for humanity. But it was enough. The return of the human slaves took 6 months. Ship after ship arrived at Earth carrying people who had been taken from their homes. Families were reunited, communities rebuilt, the world celebrated. But it was not a simple, happy ending. Millions had died. Entire cities had been damaged. The war had left scars that would take generations to heal, and Earth was forever changed. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Crag 7, now a human-controlled station. She looked out at the stars. A year ago, she had been a simple engineer. Now she was helping build spacecraft that could travel between stars. Her designs combined human creativity with Zarketh technology. They were crude, but they worked. We did it, Marcus said, joining her. We won. Sarah nodded. We survived. But at what cost? Everything, Marcus admitted. But that is what freedom costs sometimes. Everything. They stood in silence for a moment, 2 people who had been through hell, and somehow made it out the other side. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now we rebuild, we heal, we learn, and we make sure this never happens again. On Earth, representatives from every nation gathered. The invasion had done something unexpected. It had united humanity in a way nothing else ever had. For the first time in history, all of Earth was working together, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Dr. Hayes addressed the assembly. We have been given a gift, he said. Not the technology, not the resources, but knowledge. We now know we are not alone in the universe. We know there are threats out there, and we know we can face them if we stand together. A proposal was made. The formation of a unified Earth government, not to rule over nations, but to coordinate defense, space exploration, and relations with other species. The debate was fierce. Many nations did not want to give up their sovereignty. But in the end, compromise won. The Earth Defense Initiative was born. It would coordinate military forces, scientific research, and diplomatic efforts. Every nation would contribute. Every nation would have a voice. It was not perfect, but it was a start. Meanwhile, in Zarketh space, Commander Velthar sat in his quarters. He had been stripped of his command after the failed invasion. The Empire blamed him for the disaster. He accepted the punishment without complaint. He deserved it. But he had one final duty to perform. He activated a recording device and began to speak. This message is for future generations of the Zarketh Empire. It is also for any species who might consider challenging the humans. I have made many mistakes in my life, but the greatest was underestimating Earth. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Humans are not like other species. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Predators, diseases, weather, even the food was dangerous. They survived by becoming both prey and predator. They learned to think like hunters and fight like cornered animals. They developed persistence, creativity, adaptability, and most dangerous of all, they learned to work together when threatened. He looked directly at the camera. We thought they were weak because they fight among themselves. We did not understand they were practicing. We thought they were primitive because their technology was limited. We did not understand that necessity breeds innovation. We thought they would break because other species had broken. We did not understand that humans do not break, they bend, they adapt, and then they strike back twice as hard. Velthar stood up, his posture straight despite his shame. I watched them take impossible odds and turn them into victories. I saw slaves become warriors in a matter of weeks. I witnessed ordinary civilians coordinate complex military operations with no formal training. They did all of this while we threw everything we had at them, and they won. Not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they refused to accept defeat. He took a deep breath. Here is what I learned. Humans do not fight for glory. They do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival, for their families, for their freedom. And there is no force in the galaxy more terrifying than someone fighting for what they love. They will sacrifice everything. They will use tactics we consider dishonorable. They will turn their very weakness into weapons. And they will never, ever stop. Velthar moved closer to the camera, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. So this is my warning to anyone who might be watching this in the future. Leave humanity alone. Do not provoke them. Do not enslave them. Do not attack them. Because if you do, you will learn what I learned. You will discover that behind those soft bodies and gentle smiles lives something ancient and terrifying. The ghost of every predator that ever stalked them. The memory of every disaster they survived. The determination of a species that climbed to the top of their world by refusing to die. He ended the recording and sat down, suddenly feeling very old and very tired. 5 years passed. Earth rebuilt. New cities rose where old ones had fallen. The population recovered. But the world was different now. Humanity had been forced to grow up, to realize they were not alone, to accept that the universe was dangerous. Ships bearing human crews explored the nearby star systems. They did not go looking for conquest. They went looking for knowledge, for trade, for allies. But they went prepared. Every ship was armed. Every crew was trained. Earth would never be caught defenseless again. A galactic council had formed, bringing together the various species of the galaxy. The Zarketh were there, diminished, but not destroyed. The freed slave species were there too, grateful for their liberation, and humanity was invited to join. The human representative surprised everyone. She declined the invitation. We appreciate the offer, she said, but Earth needs time. We need to heal. We need to understand our place in this galaxy before we start making decisions that affect everyone else. We will remain neutral. We will trade. We will talk. But we will not join any alliances or councils. Not yet, the other species accepted this. Some were relieved. Humanity had proven to be unpredictable and dangerous. Having them as neutral parties was perhaps safer than having them as members of any political bloc. But there was a warning that came with humanity's neutrality. A message delivered by Marcus Webb himself, now an elder statesman. We want peace, he told the assembled delegates. We want to trade, to learn, to grow. But understand this. If anyone at all threatens Earth or tries to take our people again, we will respond, not with negotiations, Not with diplomacy, with overwhelming force. We learned our lesson. We hope you learned yours. The message was clear. Humanity was willing to be friends, but they were ready to be enemies. 10 years after the invasion, Sarah Chen returned to Crag 7. It had been transformed. No longer a slave colony, it was now a joint research station. Humans, Dothrak, Keelish, and even some reformed Zarketh worked together, studying the mysteries of the universe. She met Marcus there. He had aged, gray hair at his temples, lines on his face, but his eyes were still sharp, still determined. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked. "About what we went through?" "Every day," Marcus replied. "The faces of the people we lost, the sacrifices that were made. But I also think about what we achieved. We survived. We fought back, we won, not just for ourselves, but for every human who will come after us. We made sure our species will never be slaves again." Sarah nodded. "Do you think they will come back? The Zarketh or someone else?" Marcus looked out at the stars. "Maybe. The universe is a big place. There are probably species out there we have not met yet. Some might be friendly, some might not. But if they do come, they will find a different humanity than the one the Zarketh found. We are ready now. We are united, and we are not afraid." On Earth, in museums and schools, the story of the invasion was taught. Children learned about the war, about the heroes who fought, about the price of freedom. But they also learned something else, a lesson that would shape humanity for generations to come. Never give up. Never surrender. Never accept defeat, because humans are survivors. They are fighters. They are the species that looked at a hostile universe and said, "We belong here too." The Zarketh Empire never recovered fully from the war. They still controlled vast territories. They still had power, but they were diminished. Other species looked at them differently now. They were not invincible. They could be beaten, and everyone knew who had beaten them. Velthar's recording was eventually released to the public. It became required viewing for any species conducting first contact with new civilizations. A warning, a lesson, a reminder. Some species watched it and laughed. Humans could not be that dangerous. Those were just stories. Propaganda. But those who had fought humans, who had seen them in battle, who had watched them turn impossible situations into victories, those species knew better. They shared their own stories, their own warnings. One warning became universal across the galaxy. It was written in every major language. It was taught in every military academy. It was known by every spacefaring species. Never provoke humanity. They do not fight for conquest. They do not fight for glory. They fight for survival, and there is nothing in this galaxy more dangerous than a human fighting for what they love. 50 years after the invasion, an alien archaeological team discovered something interesting on a distant planet. Ancient ruins, evidence of a long-dead civilization. Among the artifacts, they found a warning carved into stone. It was written in a language they had to work hard to translate. When they finally decoded it, the message was simple but chilling. "We found a world of prey animals that had no natural weapons. We thought they would be easy to conquer. We were wrong. They are not prey. They are predators who learned to hide their claws. We paid the price for our arrogance. Do not make our mistake. Leave the humans alone." The archaeological team reported their findings. The message spread across the galaxy. It seemed humanity had been visited before, long ago, by a species that no longer existed, and everyone understood why they were gone. Earth continued to grow, to explore, to build. They made friends with species who approached them with respect. They traded knowledge and culture. They contributed to galactic civilization, but they never forgot the lesson of the invasion. They stayed vigilant. They stayed ready, because humanity had learned something important. The universe was not kind. It was not safe. It was full of dangers and challenges, but that was okay, because humans had survived worse. They had faced extinction countless times on their home world. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues, wars, and they had survived them all. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were humans, and the galaxy would remember. The Zarketh came to Earth for slaves. They learned why humanity should never be provoked. They learned that behind the smiles and the soft skin and the apparent weakness was something that had survived millions of years of evolution on a death world. Something that refused to be conquered. Something that would fight with everything it had, no matter the odds. Humanity, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because they never gave up. They never surrendered. They never accepted defeat. And when pushed to the edge, they pushed back with a fury that shocked the universe. The aliens came to Earth for slaves. They learned why humanity should not be provoked, and they would never forget.